Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Siri from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 72 for you guys today. Of course, this episode is going to be coming out on all four of our platforms: our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So let's go ahead and dive into the first segment of the Combat Series this week. In the world of boxing, I'll be sharing my fight prediction for this weekend's fight taking place in the sport of boxing between Jaron Ennis and Karen Chukhadzhian. So, in the welterweight division, we will see Jaron Ennis defend his IBF welterweight title against Karen Chukhadzhian, and another homecoming for Jaron Ennis when he will be defending the IBF title in his hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the Wells Fargo Arena. So these are the following storylines I have heading into this welterweight championship fight. Now, storyline number one is, can both fighters learn from their mistakes from the first time that these two respective fighters have fought each other? Now, we've seen this matchup before in the welterweight division nearly 2 years ago. In early 2023, January 2023, Jaron Ennis and Karen both fought each other on this Gervonta Davis and Hector Garcia undercard. They were the co-main event of the fight. And at the time, they were fighting for the interim IBF title. And we all know the story of how Jaron Ennis was later on in the year elevated to become the IBF champion. But both fighters had some mistakes in that fight, and both can learn from their mistakes from the first time they fought. And when you think about the first time these two respective fighters fought, I thought that Jaron Ennis had a pretty good performance. But to some, he didn't look as strong as he should have. And he didn't get the knockout victory like a lot of people were expecting him to. And that goes where Jaron Ennis was very active in the first time those two respective fighters fought. But a lot of people thought that he should have been more dominant. But to Jaron Ennis' defense, Karen Chukhadzhian was pretty mobile in terms of moving around the ring, avoiding to be hit, fighting to basically survive for 12 rounds. So we're going to see if Karen Chukhadzhian wants to defeat Jaron Ennis this time around. Things are going to have to be different. And I did see some errors that Jaron Ennis needed to clean up on from the first fight. So we're going to see if these two respective fighters can clean up their mistakes from the first time these two respective fighters fought. Now, next storyline is, can Karen Chukhadzhian pull off one of the biggest upsets of boxing in 2024, defeating Jaron Ennis for the IBF title and spoiling his homecoming in his hometown of Philly? Now, if he can, with whoever wins this fight, the welterweight division is starting to wake up once again. And this was a division that once upon a time, for years, for 2017, 18 to 2023, was taken over by two fighters, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, who had a vice grip on all of those titles for nearly 5 to 6 years. But now it's a different division with both of those guys moving up to the super welterweight division. You have Jaron Ennis, who holds the IBF title. You have Brian Norman, that holds the WBO title. You have Mario Barrios, who holds the WBC title. And then you have Amantis, that holds the WBA title. So Karen Chukhadzhian can defeat Jaron Ennis, and it would shake up the entire welterweight division, the landscape of this division that has found new life since Crawford and Spence have moved up to the super welterweight division. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And last but not least, the final storyline, can Jaron Ennis send a strong message to the sport of boxing? Now, I think Jaron Ennis has all the ingredients to be the next big star in the sport of boxing. And we're starting to see that because Eddie Hearn, since he signed with Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn is already treating him like a star in the sport of boxing. This is the second time that Eddie Hearn has hooked him up with a homecoming fight with him defending his IBF title in front of his hometown of Philadelphia. So Jaron Ennis, I know he already has the skills, the defensive skills. He has the power, the boxing IQ. He has everything in his toolbox and his arsenal to be a star in the sport of boxing. It all starts by defeating Karen Chukhadzhian once again, sending a strong message to the sport of boxing to show that you are ready to be a star in the sport of boxing. But enough of the storylines. Let's get into the tail of the tape here. For the challenger, Karen Chukhadzhian, he is 24-2, has 13 victories come away of knockout, stands at 5'9", and has a reach advantage of 68 inches. Then I'm looking at the champion, Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis is 32-0. He has 29 victories come away of knockout, currently the reigning defending IBF welterweight champion of the world. Stands at 5'10" and has a reach advantage of 74 inches. So the height and the reach goes in favor of Jaron Ennis. We're going to see if he can use that height and reach to his advantage in this rematch for the IBF title. So these are the following game plans that I have for these respective fighters to follow if they want to walk out of Philly with that IBF title. Starting off with the challenger, Karen Chukhadzhian. Now, game plan number one, he's got to stay off the ropes. Now, Karen Chukhadzhian, when he's in defensive mode, he cannot afford to be caught up on the ropes, and he has to be alert defensively all rounds of this championship fight. And if he leans on the ropes, if Karen Chukhadzhian leans on the ropes, that could open the door for Jaron Ennis to land combinations upstairs to the head, to the face, and then downstairs to the body. That could leave Karen Chukhadzhian very vulnerable in a world of trouble, getting hit by several combinations, several bombs, several power strikes that Jaron Ennis could unfold and unload the clip on him if Karen Chukhadzhian is posted up on the ropes for too long in this fight. So that's something he's got to do and be alert defensively in this fight. Now, secondly, Karen Chukhadzhian's got to be active and fight coming forward. Like I just touched up on a few moments ago in the first fight, he was very mobile and very active defensively, moving around the ring, trying to escape, but without getting knocked out, in survival mode to go 12 rounds with Jaron Ennis. Well, this time, you're getting a shot, once again, at the IBF title. You can't be in that mode. You got to go fight coming forward. You got to put your foot on the gas pedal from round one all the way to the fight ends. And during this fight, he has to control the pace of the fight against Jaron Ennis. Because if he doesn't, he could be on a boxing on the back foot against Jaron Ennis for as long as the fight goes on is not a good recipe. So I think Karen Chukhadzhian's got a fight coming forward. He's got to put some combinations together and catch Jaron Ennis off guard and give him everything that you got. Now, last but not least, Karen Chukhadzhian's got to control the pace of the fight. And I think he controlled the pace of the fight with a jab. If Jaron Ennis is steady, being the aggressive fighter, creating pressure or bringing pressure to you, hit him with a jab, a stiff jab every time he comes at you, trying to dictate the pace of the fight. Karen Chukhadzhian needs to control the pace of the fight. Hit him with a jab, and if he starts landing the jabs, that can lead to Karen Chukhadzhian setting up feints to get home to the body and end up landing uppercut shots. The best shot that Karen Chukhadzhian I've seen him on film and seen him when he fought Jaron Ennis is landing that uppercut. So if the jab could get home, and then he's having success with the jab several times, he can start fading the jab and then lean in with the uppercut. That could be a good recipe for success for Karen Chukhadzhian. Those are the three game plans that I have for him heading into this fight against Jaron Ennis. Now, for the champion, Jaron Ennis, like I just said for Karen Chukhadzhian, Jaron Ennis needs to land a stiff jab. Now, Jaron Ennis can land that stiff jab and put the pressure on Karen Chukhadzhian. I think that would be a world of success for Jaron Ennis, because that jab that Jaron Ennis has, he's already a powerful puncher as it is, but that stiff jab is one of the best punches that in Jaron Ennis' toolbox in his arsenal. So I think when you look back at the first fight, he gave Karen Chukhadzhian a lot of problems with that jab in the first fight. So I think he could have a lot of success for that. And even as the rounds went on, Karen Chukhadzhian, him and his corner really didn't have any defensive adjustments for that jab. That same jab that was getting home that Jaron Ennis was landing. That stiff jab that's set up for 1-2 combinations and fighting on the inside, etc. But I think that's a good game plan for Jaron Ennis to have for this fight. Now next, Jaron Ennis has to stay busy landing combinations. We all know how active Jaron Ennis is in rounds. He doesn't take rounds off. He barely even loses rounds. But when Jaron Ennis is very active, he could be one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport of boxing. And the man is great landing combinations. The man is actually really swift landing combinations, because he can fight in an orthodox style or in a southpaw style. And that's what makes Jaron Ennis very unique in that boxing ring. So if he can land combinations fighting in the orthodox or the southpaw style, landing crisp, powerful combinations upstairs to the face, downstairs to the body, I think that could be he could put Karen Chukhadzhian in a world of trouble in that boxing ring Saturday night. Now, last but not least, I think Jaron Ennis is going to have to fight at different angles, and we've seen him do that. And I don't want to put so much on Jaron Ennis, but when I speak highly about him, he just has the levels of guy that He can't do it as well as him, but when I see him fight at different angles, I think of a prime Vasily Lomachenko, how good Vasily Lomachenko was fighting at different angles. And that's something that Jaron Ennis does very well in that boxing ring. So I think he can catch Karen Chukhadzhian off guard, fighting at different angles, using that good footwork, and move around at different lateral angles in that boxing ring. And I think that could lead to Jaron Ennis setting up traps for Karen Chukhadzhian, making mistakes, and could lead to Jaron Ennis possibly dropping Karen Chukhadzhian in that fight. So those are the game plans that I have for both respective fighters to follow. With that being said, I'm going to go with Jaron Ennis to pick up the win and successfully retain his IBF title against Karen Chukhadzhian and his homecoming to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I think he's going to pick up the victory by a 6-round knockout this weekend in the sport of boxing. I just believe that Jaron Ennis is going to learn from it, the small mistakes that he made against Karen Chukhadzhian when they fought each other on the undercard of Gervonta Davis and Hector Garcia in 2023. I think he's going to learn from them mistakes. He's going to put away Karen Chukhadzhian this time and get the KO victory. And I think Jaron Ennis is going to control the pace of the fight. I can see Jaron Ennis fighting at different angles, being very comfortable, setting up traps for him to make, for Karen Chukhadzhian to make mistakes for him to make during this fight. And I can see Jaron Ennis landing a lot of combinations, fighting in the inside, fighting in different styles in the orthodox or the southpaw style. I can see Jaron Ennis going to work with landing 1-2 combinations to the face, to the body. And I think that stiff jab is going to help him control the pace of the fight as well. I just see Jaron Ennis sending Karen Chukhadzhian to the canvas maybe once, maybe twice. But I can see a scenario where Jaron Ennis is going to win this fight by knockout in the 6th round and possibly retire Karen Chukhadzhian on the stool as we're transitioning to different rounds. But give me Jaron Ennis to successfully retain the IBF title this weekend in the sport of boxing with a 6th-round knockout against Karen Chukhadzhian. But that is my fight prediction between Jaron Ennis and Karen Chukhadzhian.